Hello guys, happy Friday. Today I have a story for you that I'm just gonna be up front. This is a trigger warning for depression, suicide, and loss of a family member to suicide. A gal that I've been in acquaintance with and building a friendship with here over Instagram graciously and courageously wrote in her story with journeying through the loss of her father to suicide when she was 23 years old. Katie, I just want to say thank you so much for being vulnerable and open about all the questions that I asked you and sharing your journey through this devastating thing in your life. I personally don't know this trauma or what it is to grieve this type of a situation. So I'm thankful to hear your story and understand what it's like on your end of things to live without your dad here on earth. And I think you offer some really valuable input and insight to just your whole journey that might be helpful for other people who are also grieving the loss of a parent or a loved one. And I also feel like you offer some valuable input and advice for anyone who's struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts in their life. I know personally for me, that's been a battle my entire life. And so a lot of this hits really close to home. And so I'm thankful that you touch on a lot of things here. I don't want to make this all about me, but I know that there are so many people today who struggle with depression and suicidal thoughts and self-harm and things like that. So thank you, Katie, once again for sharing your story. I'm going to let you do the talking. I'm going to read your answers. And then at the end, like I did with Sarah's story that I shared last week, I'll just go back through and share some things that I think are so powerful that you write about. So the first question I asked Katie is, I asked her to state what she'll be talking about. She says, my father took his life when I was 23. This was almost 20 years ago. I was living in another city when it happened and only visiting about a weekend a month, so I wasn't around him all the time when he was feeling his worst. I asked Katie, how has this impacted your life significantly? She said, not having my father around for so many things has been lonely, devastating at times, a void of not hearing his wisdom and not being able to ask for his support. We missed him at our weddings and graduations and when his grandsons entered the family. He was a school psychologist and he could have been there for me, my sisters, and sons to help support them through their neurodivergent and trauma journeys. And then all the regular everyday things like how to fix things around the house, financial decisions to bounce off an elder, talking about tech stuff. He loved new computer technologies and just sharing life with him. I asked Katie, what has been the biggest lesson from this journey? She said that burnout, a job that doesn't fit you, and a lack of support or inability to reach out can have devastating consequences. That sometimes those who are close to you are suffering in silence and can't give voice to their pains, and you won't know it. I asked, what has it been like trying to heal from this? She said, I've had to face a lot of this wasn't my fault, along with survivor's guilt. Why am I still here and he isn't? What could I have done differently? What words could I have said to let him know that he could open up? How could I have shown him it was the pain, not life, that he wanted to end? Whew. That is so powerful right there. I'm going to touch on that at the end. To find therapists who can support this fully, and partly knowing that through my own healing, this is what would have helped him also. I asked, what are some mistakes that you've made along your healing journey? She said, assuming that my way of healing will help others the same way. My sister, mom, and I each took different paths in order to heal from the loss of my father. I love being in a group support setting and not only giving voice to my feelings, but also lending any support to others going through same circumstances or similar circumstances. She said, I also did a lot of journaling and going to therapy. My sister turned to her art and therapy. My mom did a few group sessions, and I didn't want to be reminded of those fresh feelings every time. It did some therapy and moved on to her gardening, which is her own art form. I asked, where do you feel you need to forgive yourself? She says, I really had to forgive the thoughts of what I could have done to make it different. I still may have dreams where I see my father and can say something different, but when I am awake, I have a much more settled feeling of not being able to go back in time and change anything, and that there wasn't much that I could do. I asked her, what is the strongest emotion you feel around this topic? She says, just such deep sadness and longing to see him again. to say words that we never got to say to one another. So much unspoken and so much unfinished. I asked her, what do you tell yourself daily to rise up and continue to move forward in life? She says that pain is temporary, that we can feel so low and not sure how to get out of the hole. But people want to hear that when you are stuck, that way, because they can help, even if it's to point you towards another form of support. To not hide or think you would be a burden by opening up. To move on from jobs or situations that cause you sadness. Yes, life is way too short for that. Amen, sister. It's why I have worked for myself for so long, and I'm so proud of you. I just have to interject and say I'm so proud of you. I've seen your Instagram and what you're doing, and I'm just very, very proud of you. She says, I asked, do you currently feel supported through this journey? She says, I've had about 5 therapists over the course of my life, and each one has helped me in different points of my journey. When it had just happened, one later after getting married, another one after having my son, and another one just recently. The healing is a different feeling at each point, but it keeps being something I return to. I examine and find deeper healing each time. I feel pretty good on my own this last year and may return next year. I have lots of tools that I use right now. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for this. Okay, I'm going to keep reading, but I just want to, there's so much good stuff that I just want to unpack here. I asked her, how would you like to use this thing to impact others? And I just want to clarify this question a little bit, because not all pain and not all hardship that we go through necessarily needs to just be used for other people. Sometimes just really hard things happen. And I just want to clarify that I'm not trying to undermine the situation or the hardship that you've been through. But I'm thankful that you took the time to answer this anyway, Katie. And she said, how would you like this one? What would you use this one thing to impact others? She says, to leave room in your friendships and relationships to be a safe person people can come to talk to about any of their problems. Yes. Unless they're obviously energy vampires. Yes, we have to have boundaries as well for our own sanity. She says, most times people don't want to be fixed. They just want someone to listen and maybe reflect so they could do some more inner reflection also. Yeah. Yep. I still have to work on being a safe person, meaning no judgment, no fixing, no interruptions, no talking about myself, just listening. It can mean so much to others, but I also have to protect my own energy and not be a dumping ground. I'm an empath, so I absorb a lot of others' energy. Yes, sister. But I am finding that my boundaries can be up and still listen, because it's not my problem to solve, and I can still be supportive. Then I asked her, what would you tell someone else who is going through the same thing to encourage them not to give up? She said that your body will go through shock. Each death is different, and even the deaths you expect are coming and happening that you expect are coming and happening are hard to process. There are layers to suicide deaths of just the shock that they are immediately gone, but also that there is almost a double life they were leading that you never knew about. To know that none of us knows what goes on in other people's heads, but you also aren't responsible for it. Yeah. You will spin the what ifs for a long time, but those will settle. There isn't anything you can do but slowly process them and your feelings and find a modality of healing that works for you. It could be kickboxing, it could be art, it could be writing, it could be in groups. Try them all and stick with what feels best. And then that's the end. And Katie, I just learned so much from you. And I'm going to cry. Because this is powerful. There's 2 things that I just really want to point out that I think was so good. The first one is, you said, I asked, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from this journey? And you said that burnout, a job that doesn't fit you, and the lack of support or inability to reach out can have devastating consequences. And I just want to tell anyone who is struggling with this, or struggling with suicidal thoughts, or you're sad in your life because there's just situations or circumstances that are making you miserable. If you have the ability to move and change the situation, do it for your own good. I have felt that, and I know many people who have felt that and who have felt burned out and been miserable in their jobs and their workplaces. And I hope if you are in that situation that you make that choice for you and for your happiness and for your life, to step into what you are really supposed to be doing and to let go of everything else that doesn't serve you and doesn't bring you joy and happiness. Life is way too short. Another thing that you said that I think is really, really, really great is you touched on assuming that my way of healing will help others the same way. And I think that's so wise, so wise, because we're all different people. And that's the whole point of this community, is to touch on the fact that we're all different. We all have different experiences and have all gone through hard things and hardships and traumas in our life. And the way you heal is your journey, and that's okay. You're not anyone else. You're on your own path and your own journey. And I just love that you touch on that, because we can't assume other people are just like us and gonna heal the same way. And I love that you also encourage people to find their avenue to coping and healing, whether that's exercise or art. Just keep trying things until you find a place that you can feel that healing to begin. And I think that's just so good. You know what? I don't even think I need to touch on anything else, because you just said it all, girlfriend. Katie, I'm so proud of you. And I also am so sorry. I'm so sorry that you have had to journey through this. And I know there's other people in my circle who have lost loved ones to suicide. And I'm so sorry for each and every one of you who's been hurting in that way. Suicide and depression is a serious thing. A good friend of mine, Summer, actually, I'll tag her, said it very well recently, where she wished her mental health had a visible, like something was visibly wrong, like physically, like she needed crutches or something that people could at least recognize what was wrong and what was going on inside of her head, because it is debilitating. And I hope that you reach out if you're struggling with that. I've had to reach out. There's no shame in getting help. There's no shame in seeing a therapist, just like Katie had to see a therapist. This is just, I'm just blown away by your wisdom, Katie. You've obviously done a lot of work to grow through this, and I'm just really proud of you. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you. I will talk to you guys later.